My name is Amy Harris, and I was 29 years old when this story began. I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be a mother. It wasn't something I talked about at dinner parties or posted about online. It wasn't a loud dream. It was the kind of thing I carried quietly, the way some people carry a song they hum only when they're alone. I imagined bedtime stories, scraped knees, tiny hands reaching for mine in parking lots. I imagined the weight of a child asleep on my chest, the specific exhaustion that comes with love that doesn't ask for anything back. But wanting something and having it are not the same thing. My younger sister got pregnant 6 months after her wedding. I remember the announcement. She posted it on social media with a picture of a positive test and the caption, "Surprise, we weren't even trying." I stared at that post for longer than I should have. The comments flooded in. "Congratulations! So happy for you. You're gonna be such a great mom." I liked the post, I texted her a heart emoji, and then I closed my phone and sat in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. That was the same month I had my second miscarriage. No one knew about it, except my husband. We didn't tell our families, we didn't post about it. We just went to the doctor, listened to the words that didn't feel real, and came home to a house that was supposed to have a nursery by now. I cleaned out the drawer where I'd started keeping baby clothes, tiny onesies I'd bought on sale, just in case. I folded them carefully and put them in a box in the back of the closet. My husband asked if I wanted to talk about it. I said no. He asked if I was okay. I said yes. I wasn't. But I didn't know how to explain that I was breaking in a way that didn't make noise. It happened on a Sunday in October at my parents' house. My sister was 7 months pregnant with her second child. She sat at the head of the table, one hand resting on her belly, the other holding a glass of sparkling water. My mother hovered near her, refilling her plate, asking if she needed anything, adjusting the pillow behind her back. My father asked about the nursery. My brother-in-law talked about baby names. I sat at the other end of the table and cut my chicken into smaller and smaller pieces. My mother turned to me eventually. She always did. "So, Amy Harris," she said, smiling in that way that wasn't really a smile. "When are you and Daniel finally going to give us some grandkids? Your sister's already on number 2. I'd heard this question 100 times. I had my answer ready. "We're not in a rush," I said lightly. "We're just enjoying being married right now." My mother laughed. "Well, don't wait too long. You're not getting any younger." I nodded, smiled, took a sip of water. And then my sister spoke. Maybe she should just accept that some women aren't meant to be mothers. The room went silent. I looked at her. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at her plate, cutting her food, as if she'd just commented on the weather. "Not everyone gets to have what I have," she continued, still not meeting my eyes. "And that's okay. Some people are just not maternal." I felt my husband's hand find mine under the table. He squeezed, hard. I waited for someone to say something. My mother, my father, anyone. No one did. My mother cleared her throat and asked my sister if she wanted more mashed potatoes. I smiled, I nodded, I said, "Excuse me for a second," and walked calmly to the bathroom. I locked the door, turned on the faucet so no one would hear, and I cried the kind of tears that come from somewhere deeper than sadness. I cried for 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, reapplied my smile, and went back to the table. No one asked if I was okay. I didn't expect them to. 3 weeks after that dinner, my husband and I were lying in bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. "What if we tried surrogacy?" he said quietly. We'd talked about it before, years ago, actually, but it always felt like something other people did. People with more money, more resources, more certainty. And if I'm honest, it felt like giving up, like admitting my body had failed me. But that night, something was different. I didn't feel like I was giving up. I felt like I was choosing a different door. "Okay," I said. He turned his head toward me. "Really?" "Really." We started researching the next day. Agencies, legal processes, costs. It was overwhelming and terrifying and expensive. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was moving towards something instead of away from it. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell my sister. I didn't post about it. I didn't ask for advice. I didn't send updates in the family group chat. This was mine. The consultations took months. We met with doctors, lawyers, and agencies. We filled out forms. We had hard conversations about what we could afford and what we were willing to risk. And then, finally, we were matched. Her name was Claire. She was 32, a mother of 2, and she had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. She told us she'd always wanted to help someone become a parent. She said it was the most meaningful thing she could imagine doing. I cried when we met her. Not sad tears, different ones. The first ultrasound was in a small room with pale blue walls. Claire lay on the table, and my husband held my hand, and the technician moved the wand across her belly. And then we heard it. 2 heartbeats. "Twins," the technician said, smiling. I couldn't breathe. My husband started laughing and crying at the same time. Claire reached for my hand and squeezed it. I thought about my sister in that moment. I thought about the dinner table. I thought about all the times I'd smiled through her announcements, her belly photos, her unsolicited advice. And I realized something. I didn't need to tell her. I didn't owe her my joy. This was mine, and I was going to keep it that way. While I built my future in silence, my sister's life continued exactly as it always had, loud, visible, and completely unaware of what was coming. The months passed quietly. Claire's pregnancy progressed beautifully. Every appointment felt like a small miracle. We saw the twins grow on grainy ultrasound screens, tiny hands, tiny feet, 2 hearts beating in perfect rhythm. We prepared the nursery. We painted the walls a soft yellow, we assembled cribs and folded onesies, and read parenting books we'd owned for years, but never had a reason to open. I lived in a bubble during those months, a quiet, fragile bubble made of hope and terror in equal measure. Meanwhile, my family's life continued exactly as it always had. My mother called every few weeks. She talked about my sister's kids, how smart they were, how funny, how exhausting. She sent me photos I didn't ask for. She invited me to birthday parties and holiday dinners. I went to all of them. I smiled. I brought gifts. I held my nephew when he reached for me. I complimented my sister's new house, her new car, her new haircut, and I said nothing. My sister posted constantly on social media, pictures of her kids in matching outfits, stories about sleepless nights and terrible twos, captions about her perfect little chaos, and wouldn't trade it for the world. I liked the posts. Sometimes I even commented, but I never told her about the twins growing inside another woman's body 3 states away, the twins who would be mine in a matter of weeks. One night, my husband asked, "When are you going to tell them?" I was folding tiny blankets in the nursery. I paused, looked at him, and said, "When there's something to tell." He studied my face. "You're not punishing them, are you?" "No," I said, and I meant it. I wasn't punishing anyone. I just didn't owe them my joy anymore. They hadn't protected my pain. They didn't get access to my miracle. The due date was 2 weeks away, and I still hadn't said a word. The call came at 4 in the morning. "Amy Harris?" Claire's voice was calm but tight. "It's time." We drove through empty streets with our hands clasped between us, neither of us speaking. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. When we arrived, Claire was already in a delivery room, her husband beside her, holding her hand. She smiled when she saw me. Even in pain, she smiled. The next hours were a blur of breathing and waiting and praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in. And then I heard it. A cry. Small and sharp and perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor said. They placed her in my arms and I looked down at her, tiny, red-faced, eyes squeezed shut, and I felt something crack open inside me that I didn't know was closed. "Hi," I whispered. "I'm your mom." 3 minutes later, her brother arrived. He was smaller, quieter, his little fist curled against his cheek. When they placed him on my chest, he opened his eyes for just a second, and I swear he looked right at me. I couldn't stop crying. My husband was crying. Claire was crying. Even the nurse dabbed at her eyes. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was sacred. The first 48 hours were a blur. Feeding schedules, diaper changes, the kind of exhaustion I'd only read about. My daughter had my husband's nose. My son had my eyes. They were so small I was terrified to hold them too tightly, and so perfect I was terrified to let them go. My phone buzzed occasionally. A text from my mother. "Are you coming to your nephew's soccer game this weekend?" A meme from my sister. A cartoon mom holding a glass of wine with the caption, "Motherhood, powered by coffee and chaos." I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I set my phone down and picked up my daughter. On the third day, my husband asked again, quietly, while I was rocking our son back to sleep, "Are you going to tell them?" I looked down at the tiny boy in my arms. His fingers were wrapped around mine. His breathing was soft and steady. "Not yet," I said. "Why not?" I didn't answer right away. I just watched my son's chest rise and fall. "I want to keep them safe a little longer," I finally said. My husband nodded. He understood. I wasn't being cruel. I was being careful. My family had proven they didn't know how to hold my pain. I wasn't ready to trust them with my joy. But silence, no matter how intentional, eventually breaks. 2 weeks after the twins were born, my mother showed up unannounced. She did that sometimes, just appeared at my door with leftovers, or a plant she thought I needed, or some piece of unsolicited advice about my life. I heard the doorbell and froze. My daughter was asleep in my arms, my son was in his bassinet in the living room. The house smelled like spit up and coffee and the kind of exhaustion that settles into your furniture. For a moment, I considered not answering, but then I realized something. I didn't owe her a performance anymore. I opened the door. My mother's smile faltered the second she saw me. Her eyes dropped to the baby in my arms. She stared. "Whose baby is that?" she asked. "Mine," I said. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "What?" I stepped aside and let her in. She walked slowly into the living room, her eyes moving from me to the bassinet where my son was sleeping, and then back to me. "Amy Harris," she said, her voice tight. "What is going on?" "We used a surrogate," I said calmly. "They were born 2 weeks ago. We didn't tell anyone because we wanted privacy." She stood there, frozen, her purse still on her shoulder. 2 weeks ago?" she repeated. "Yes. You didn't tell me?" "No." She looked at the babies, then at me, then back at the babies. I could see it happening in real time. The guilt, the confusion, the dawning realization that she'd missed everything. The pregnancy, the preparation, the birth, all of it. She tried to smile. "Amy Harris, this is wonderful. I'm so happy for you." But her voice cracked. I didn't say anything. She sat down on the couch, still staring at my son. "When were you going to tell me?" "I don't know," I said honestly. She looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw something like hurt in her eyes. "Does your sister know?" she asked. "No." "Amy Harris," her voice sharpened. "You have to tell her. She'll be so hurt." I looked at my mother. This woman who had sat at that dinner table and said nothing while my sister tore me apart. This woman who had asked me for years when I was going to give her grandchildren, as if it were that simple. "She'll be fine," I said quietly. "She always is." My mother opened her mouth to argue, but I was already walking toward the nursery with my daughter. She left 20 minutes later, and the second she got in her car, I knew exactly what she was going to do. She was going to call my sister. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing, text after text. "Mom said you have twins? Is this a joke? Why didn't you tell me? I can't believe you hid this from your own family." I read each one. I didn't respond. Then she called. I stared at her name on the screen. My husband looked up from where he was changing our son's diaper. "You going to answer?" he asked. I shook my head. The call went to voicemail. A minute later, my phone buzzed again, voicemail notification. I listened to it once. Her voice was shaking, half shock, half anger. "Amy Harris, what the hell? Mom just told me you had twins 2 weeks ago and didn't tell anyone? How could you do that? How could you keep something like this from me, from all of us?" Her voice cracked. "You've been so secretive, so cold. I don't know what I did to make you punish me like this, but this isn't fair. I would have thrown you a baby shower. I would have been there for you. I would have helped. But you didn't even give me the chance." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. "I don't understand you anymore," she said quietly. Then the voicemail ended. I deleted it. My husband was watching me. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "She still doesn't get it." "Do you want her to?" I thought about that, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I don't think I do. I don't need her to understand. I just need her to stop expecting me to pretend." 3 days later, she texted again. This time it was longer, softer. "I'm sorry if I ever made you feel bad. I didn't mean to. I love you. You're my sister. I just want to be part of your life. Can I at least meet them?" I read it twice. Then I typed back. "When we're ready." She started typing immediately. I saw the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Finally, a message came through. "When will that be?" I didn't answer. I didn't block her. I didn't cut her off. I didn't send a long paragraph explaining everything she'd done wrong. I just didn't respond. Because I realized something in that moment. I didn't owe her my timeline. I didn't owe her access to my children just because we shared DNA. I didn't owe her forgiveness on her schedule. She could wait. She could sit in the discomfort of not knowing. She could feel, for once, what it was like to be on the outside, and I could take all the time I needed to heal. Weeks turned into months, and my life continued quietly, fully, on my own terms. Months passed. Slowly, carefully, my family adjusted to the new reality. Amy Harris had children, and she didn't need their approval or involvement to raise them. My mother started asking permission before visiting. She'd text first, "Can I stop by this week?" instead of just showing up with her key and her opinions. My sister sent occasional messages, pictures of her kids, safe, surface-level small talk. "How are the twins? They're so cute. We should get them together sometime." I responded, politely, briefly. "They're good, thanks. Maybe soon." But I never suggested a date, and she never pushed. The old dynamic was gone. I was no longer the family member who absorbed criticism in silence and smiled through her pain. I was a mother now, and my priority was my children, not my family's comfort. Christmas came. My mother insisted on hosting. She wanted everyone together. She wanted to see the twins. I agreed to go. We arrived late. The twins were 6 months old by then. Chubby, curious, starting to sit up on their own. My sister's kids ran up to us immediately, asking 100 questions. My mother cried when she held my son. My father took photos. My sister hovered. She gushed over the twins, asked to hold them, took photos for her social media. I let her, but there was a wall now, invisible but solid. She felt it. Halfway through dinner, she pulled me aside into the hallway. "Amy Harris," she said quietly, "I'm sorry for what I said that night, at dinner. I didn't mean it." I looked at her, really looked at her. She looked tired, older somehow. Her smile didn't reach her eyes the way it used to. "I know you didn't mean it," I said. Relief flickered across her face. "But I also know," I continued, "that you didn't think about it until it affected you." Her mouth opened, closed. She had no response. I didn't need one. I walked back into the living room, picked up my daughter, and sat down on the couch. My sister stayed in the hallway for a long time. When she came back, she didn't look at me, and I didn't look at her. Life became quieter after that, not because I cut anyone off, but because I stopped waiting for people to earn what they'd never valued. The first year of motherhood was nothing like I imagined. It was harder, messier, more exhausting than I could have prepared for, but it was also more beautiful. There were nights I cried from sheer overwhelm, holding a screaming baby at 3 a.m, wondering if I was doing any of it right. There were moments I questioned everything, moments I felt like I was drowning. But there were also mornings when my daughter smiled at me and I forgot every sleepless night that came before it. There were afternoons when my son grabbed my finger and held on like I was his entire world. And I realized this is what I fought for. Not revenge, not validation, just this. I think about the version of myself who sat at that dinner table, absorbing my sister's cruelty in silence. The version who smiled and nodded and excused herself to cry alone in a bathroom. I don't hate her, but I'm grateful I'm not her anymore. I used to think boundaries were cruel, that setting them meant I was cold, unforgiving, selfish. But my children taught me something I didn't know before. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. I didn't owe my family access to every part of my life just because they expected it. I didn't owe them forgiveness on their timeline. I didn't owe them explanations for choices I made to protect myself and my children. I owed them kindness, respect, civility, but I didn't owe them my pain. My family is still in my life. We still see each other at holidays. We still text occasionally. My mother visits. My sister sends birthday cards for the twins. But they're no longer the center of my world, and that's exactly how it should be. My children are the center now. One evening, I was sitting on the floor of the nursery. My daughter was babbling to herself in her crib. My son was asleep on my chest, his tiny hand curled against my collarbone. And I thought, this is enough. This is more than enough. Some stories don't end with apologies or reconciliation. Some just end with peace. My twins are 3 years old now. They run, they laugh, they fight over toys and hug each other 2 minutes later. They call me Mama 100 times a day, and I never get tired of hearing it. We see my family at holidays, birthday parties, the occasional Sunday dinner. My sister's kids and my kids play together sometimes. They chase each other around my parents' backyard. They share snacks. They're cousins, after all. It's civil. It's surface-level fine. But the closeness my sister once assumed would always exist between us, it's gone, and I don't mourn it. I have my husband. I have my children. I have a life I built in the silence my family once used to hurt me. I didn't need them to apologize perfectly. I didn't need them to understand every choice I made or every boundary I set. I just needed them to stop being the center of my pain. And they're not anymore. My sister said I'd never be a mother. She was wrong, but more importantly, I stopped needing her to admit it. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I don't tell it to shame anyone or to position myself as a victim who won. I tell it for the person reading this who's been told they're not enough by the people who should have believed in them first. The person who's absorbed cruelty in silence because they didn't know they were allowed to walk away. the person who's still waiting for an apology that may never come. You don't need their permission to prove them wrong. You don't need their validation to move forward. You don't need them to understand your choices in order for those choices to be right. You just need to stop giving them power over your peace. I found mine, and if you're reading this, I hope you find yours too. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, firmly, on your own terms. That's the kind of victory no one can take from you.